Hello everyone and welcome to another video on the Fat for Weight Loss channel. My name is Aaron and today I'm talking all about the protein and greens challenge that I've been doing over the past 8 weeks that I've been able to significantly reduce my body fat percentage. So let's get started. So let's start with the absolute stats of what I've been doing and some of the results that I got over the past 8 weeks, because I think that's really interesting. And this isn't so much to talk about what I've done, this is more about how to actually implement it for you. So if you wanted to do the exact same thing, hopefully this video can show you how to do that. So I started off at 22% body fat. So I had come back from holidays and a whole bunch of other things, probably not following the best diet during that. So 22% body fat, and that was monitored by a DEXA scan. And now this week I had another DEXA scan. I got 17% body fat. Now, DEXA scans are very, very accurate in how they measure. Other things like bod pods or, the ones on your scales tend to be a bit of an algorithmic guess. But getting a DEXA scan for me was important because I had a starting point and I had a definite end point. And so over that 8 weeks, I was doing a few different things, and I can talk about that in a little bit, the macronutrient profiles and the ratios and what I was eating. I've been going to the gym for a little while now, but I've never really been able to deadlift any more than 100 kilos. That's sort of been my limit for a long time. Over the past 8 weeks, I got up to 150 kilos. So that's a 50% increase, probably due to the fact that I have never eaten enough protein in my life. So I'm able to safely and comfortably squat 100 kilos now, as opposed to shakily being able to do 80 or 90. So there was an increase in a lot of different lifts at the gym, specifically in strength. And I think that that's really important to note, because whilst you're in a calorie deficit, generally your strength doesn't go up. And so for something like this, for my strength to go up so dramatically whilst being in a calorie deficit, it was really, really interesting to note. So the protocol for me, and if you haven't watched the protein and greens video where you can calculate all of your macros and what it should look like for you, the link is up here in the video. But basically what you want to be doing is you want to find out how much lean mass you have on your body, and you want to be eating that amount of protein in grams. So the lean mass in pounds, if you're in Australia, that will be in kilos times 2.2. So for me, that was 150 grams of protein per day. As I went through the weeks, I slowly dialed back the fat to start accessing my own stored body fat instead of consuming a lot of fat without, reducing the protein so much. So very, very interesting. So I went from 150 grams of protein every single day for 8 weeks, eating 40 grams of total carbs. Now you can either do net carbs or total carbs, that's up to you. But I was tracking total carbs because I wanted to make sure that things like sugar alcohols and stuff didn't slip in and start affecting, the results that I was getting over those weeks. So there was definitely times where I did eat sugar alcohols, because being a keto blogger, you're always making recipes and you're always, making foods that tend to have other ingredients in them. But for this specific purpose, I tried to keep it under 40 grams of total. There was definitely days where I was definitely under that limit. Some days were 10 total carbs, but others were 40. So now the fat macro is where it gets interesting, because generally on a really strict ketogenic diet, the ratio of the amount of food that you're eating tends to be in the 70 to 80% mark of fat. That's the caloric and macro ratio, specifically determined for a ketogenic diet. But for me, I was manipulating that fat macro to using fat that is consumed to using fat that is on my body. Now there's 2 phases of what I did. Now there was the first phase, which lasts 6 weeks, and that is where you eat fatty cuts of meat all the way up to 150 grams of protein. Then you eat that with a side of salad. Doing that 2 meals a day, intermittent fasting, nothing other than black coffee for me. That was what I did for 6 weeks. And then in the last 2 weeks, I switched from fatty cuts of meat to lean cuts of meat. Now, a big word of warning here is that if you do have any prior food issues or food eating issues, then I do not recommend doing that last 2 weeks, because it's really tough. Going to lean cuts of meat after eating fatty cuts of meat, because you're getting so much energy from the fat in the meat, to then suddenly go to lean proteins is a pretty significant calorie reduction. And in the last 2 weeks, maybe I lost some body fat in there, but I definitely lost a part of my soul in that part too. So it doesn't feel good, and I don't recommend everyone do that. But it is there if you want to do it. For you would be doing the exact same thing. So what you want to do is work out how many grams of protein you need to eat per day, and then figure out a macronutrient profile that sits around that. So for me, I was doing 40 grams of total carbs. I'm pretty tall, so you may want to do less, but that is totally up to you, depending on whether you want to track net carbs or total carbs. That's up to you as well. But generally, if you're just eating protein and greens, you don't need to worry about sugar alcohol, so I would be tracking total carbs. The thing that I found that I was doing a lot was making one big portion of meat at the start of the week, so something like silverside, something like ground beef, something like a flavored type of mince of some sort. That would be then portioned out into that particular amount of protein that I needed, and then I'd eat that for lunch and dinner. And that was pretty much my diet for a lot of the time. If we were eating out, then I would go and get steak and salad. That's a pretty good option because generally steak has plenty of fat on it as well. So this whole protocol is based on something that is called a ketogenic protein sparing modified fast. And Maria Emmerich has talked about this before, and so I've linked her in the description of this video as well, where her and Craig talk about the ketogenic sparing modified fast. For me, I was basically doing it with protein and green, so it's slightly different. I think that the ketogenic version of a protein sparing modified fast should never be done for any longer than 8 weeks, unless you do have a lot of body weight to lose. This sort of protocol is not something that I recommend long term because it is such a caloric reduction towards the end, and that's just how it is. So I went from 2,000 calories a day down to 1,300 for the last two-ish weeks, and it was very hard to get down to 1,300 per day. That's not somewhere where your body enjoys being. It's not something that I enjoyed being at. So basically, the phases that you should be going through is something similar to this. Now, I'm not sure if you can see what's on my piece of paper here, but you want to be starting at a good caloric intake, and then you want to be dialing that down, and then you want to be bringing that back up again. You never want to be stagnating at that very bottom level for too long, because your metabolism will adjust and you'll be stuck at that level, and to keep reducing after that just doesn't work. And Keto Savage Robert Sykes talks a lot about this, and same with Crystal. They always talk about keeping that fluctuation front of mind, because I do think it is important to not be at a caloric deficit for too long, because you are going to waste away. Now, moving forward, and I definitely recommend this for anyone who has been in a caloric deficit, moving forward is that I'll be trying to build muscle. Body fat is always a percentage of your total body weight, right? And so you can either reduce fat on your body or you can increase muscle. That will change the percentage of body fat you have. Now, I've tried to reduce the body fat on my body as much as possible. So 17% got me down to a pretty okay level. Now from here, I will be then building muscle mass on top of that and trying to keep the same amount of fat on my body. Because I'm in a deficit now, I've got to the point where I can't, and I probably shouldn't, reduce my calories anymore for any longer period of time. So I'm bringing them back up again slowly at about 150 calories per week. And that's about a 10% increase. And so through that, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be trying to build muscle using an intermittent fasting protocol to build lean muscle mass as opposed to just a regular type of bodybuilding bulk. Now, Thomas DeLauer has done a fantastic video over on his YouTube channel, and it talks about building muscle using intermittent fasting. Now, that video is linked here, and if I can't link it there, then it's in the description of this video. But basically what he talks about is using exercise and using the post-exercise window to be able to build muscle really, really efficiently. So the general idea is what happens is you finish a workout, and straight after a workout, which is fasted, so you are fasting all the way up until you do your workout, doing your workout fasted, and you are increasing your AMPK levels to be able to increase the amount of density that you have in your mitochondria, which creates ATP. So you're building stronger energy houses by doing your workout fasted, but then straight after the workout, increasing your insulin and also increasing your mTOR. Now, mTOR being increased, you do not want that increased all the time, but increasing your mTOR is what enables the anabolic pathways to occur. And you want anabolic signaling basically to be able to build muscle. So by doing this, I'm going to be putting a small amount of carbohydrates straight after the workout with a small amount of omega-3 fats and a regular amount of lean protein. And this will be probably in the form of a shake. So the form of carbohydrates that you need to get is very specific. And this is talked about in Thomas's video, but the amount of carbohydrates that I'm going to be getting is around 30 grams of glucose, 15 grams of fructose, and around 2 to 4 grams of omega-3s, and about 20 to 30 grams of protein. Now that will be in the form of protein powder, 1 banana, and some dextrose. So dextrose is a type of glucose that basically is able to be bypassed by the liver and go straight into the muscles, especially post-workout. So by doing this, I'm going to be increasing my insulin levels, increasing my mTOR, increasing the amount of uptake of carbohydrates that my muscles can use by adding salt to the equation. You need salt to be able to absorb glucose. And with this protocol, I'll be seeing how much muscle I can build over the next potentially 10 weeks. And this is going to be how I do that. So doing exercise in a fasted state increases AMPK, which helps your mitochondria build larger. So that's really important. But then also, insulin level is spiked very quickly, very rapidly. Your mTOR levels go up, and then you eat, during that window, the salt inside that shake will also help increase the amount of carbohydrate uptake you have into your muscles. And then right before bed is when you have a small amount of MCT oil that increases your thermogenic effect, just in case you've had too many calories over that period. Gives your metabolism a bit of a boost while you're asleep, and then you go back into a fasting state. So if you do have any questions about all of this protocol that I'm following, and if you want to start implementing some of this yourself, then you can either follow the information inside this video, or you can get one-on-one coaching with me through the website, and we can sit down for an hour and basically map all of this out for you, so that you know exactly what's going to happen, exactly where you need to be in the next 8 weeks, and exactly how much body fat you might be able to lose in that period of time. So again, I hope this video has been really informative, and I really appreciate your time. Until next week, see you then.